I am in no rush to return to Southeast Asia. Let me tell you why. I really wanted to shoot this video today because it's an important subject and it's something that doesn't just affect me, it affects all of you. All of you have been waiting for months and some even up to a year or 2 years to return to the region. There's a number of reasons why I've been holding back. For me, primarily, I'm a person who values his personal freedom. If you have experienced the Southeast Asia routine prior to the pandemic, pre-pandemic, you know what it was like. It was just a pleasant experience. It was freedom, unlimited freedom. You could do whatever you wanted to do. It was just a great experience living in Southeast Asia. But if we take a look at the situation in the region today, we can see that things work very differently. In fact, there's only a couple of countries that allow you to enter from overseas without needing to be vaccinated. Those countries are Thailand, Cambodia, Sri Lanka, and the Maldives. Maybe I've forgotten one or two. If so, please correct me, comment below. But those countries are really the only countries that would allow unvaccinated travelers at this moment in time. So this is one concern. Whether you can go to a place if you're unvaccinated or not, but what happens if you are vaccinated? Obviously you have more options. Still, there's a lot of uncertainty. You go to the place, you don't know, well, you are vaccinated, you filled out the travel form, you get the confirmation, the online confirmation from the government that your vaccine is good, you get the health pass, you get the code, the barcode, you have everything ready, and then comes the day when your flight departs and you arrive at your destination and you tested positive for COVID, and boom, you ended up in quarantine. This is a situation that I personally don't want to be in because, like I told you, I value my freedom too much. It's really surprising to see how many people that loved Southeast Asia pre-pandemic but still love it today, but they're unwilling to put up with these requirements, with these entry requirements. They find them stupid, they find them unnecessary, they find them harsh. And a lot of people are unwilling to take these steps to get back into the region, even though they have spent so much time, they have these connections, and they know that their life would be so much better. This has a very specific reason. And I think that digital nomads and expats living abroad, they left their home countries, they left Western countries because they want more freedom. The Southeast Asia that we knew pre-pandemic is very different from the Southeast Asia that we get to experience today. And now I would say, well, that doesn't hold true for all countries. Well, that is true. I totally agree with you. If you go to Cambodia, I hear that Cambodia has close to zero restrictions. Once you're in the country, you can do pretty much whatever you want. Of course, you need a test and everything, but you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. But how many countries offer that right now? The Maldives, you can go to the Maldives just to test, prior to departure. No more testing, you're done. You can live as if the pandemic never happened. That's fantastic. Thailand requires you to test, in case you're positive and you need to quarantine. Are you willing to put up with this? It's a lot of hassle. It's a lot of hassle. And then the question is, do you want to walk around with a mask on your face in the tropics? I personally hate that. I wouldn't accept that. And that's personally for me one of the main reasons why I chose to spend the time in Mexico and the United States until things normalize in the Far East. They have gotten already a lot better, and some people aren't seeing the progress that's already been made because they want things to return to normal like this. And that doesn't happen because things have gotten from good to bad, not like this, but incrementally. These things will get back to normal. It won't happen tomorrow, it won't happen in a month, but if you really analyze the progress that's been made over the past, I want to say 3 to 6 months in places like Thailand, Cambodia. The Maldives has been open all the time. Sri Lanka, very welcoming country, almost no restriction once you're in. Fantastic places that you can already visit today. Things will go back to normal, and a lot of you guys are probably like me. You're thinking, well, I have already waited for so many months or for a year, 2 years. I can wait for a little bit longer for things to normalize, because the people that are going now are mostly people with serious ties to the region. They have children, they have a business, they work there, or they are really so much in love, they are willing to do whatever it takes to get back in, so they don't really see all the hassle involved, with getting vaccinated, getting the health passes, and then potential restrictions and lockdowns. They don't mind it as much as some of us, It really depends on how much you love a place and what you're willing to do and what you're unwilling to do. There's no right or wrong. We're all different. And it reminds me of a quote that my friend Tom has been telling me for years. Some days chicken, some days feathers. It means some days you have success, some days you have failure. You can't force it, especially with something like a pandemic, like where the government is just in control over everything. You can't force the outcome. You have no control over that. So the question is, are you going to be happy letting somebody else control you to get what you want? If the answer is yes, that's perfectly fine. You're going to do very well. You're going to have less resentment than somebody that's like, I don't like that. I want to decide, how I do things. I don't want anybody telling me where I can go, where I can't go, how long I can be out for, that I need to wear a mask, I need a quarantine. Some people are unwilling to accept these measures. That's perfectly fine too. Just know yourself and know what you're willing to accept and know what you're willing to do in order to get to your goal. So yeah, it's about the whole freedom. The Southeast Asia routine, the country hopping, which pretty much means, you're going to spend a couple of weeks here, a couple of weeks there, a couple of months there, however you want to play this hand. A lot of people want to get this benefit out of the Southeast Asia routine because it is the reason why they signed up for it. There's no other reason. There's nothing better, nothing tastes as good as Southeast Asia. I always say that, and it is true. The cheap cost of living, has that changed? Potentially in some areas, especially because of inflation. If you take a look at the inflation that's been happening in the Philippines, it's outrageous, and year over year, in certain categories, inflation has risen by 20 to 30%. How about the good sides of inflation, or I shouldn't say the good sides of inflation, but how about the good aspects of being in the region? Well, a lot of us, I would say 80 to 90%, have been holding back. One of the good things, places like Thailand, you take a look at the rental market, the real estate market in Thailand. The offers that you can get today, it's incredible. It's incredible. There's so many empty properties, and that's not because Western tourists are unwilling to return to the region because they don't want to put up with restrictions, potential quarantine. Nobody wants to do that, especially people that just want to spend a couple of weeks in the tropics. They're not willing to do that because they know that their whole vacation could be in jeopardy should they test positive. But that's actually not the main market. The main market for places like Cambodia, Thailand, and Vietnam is actually not Portugal, Spain, is actually not the United States. It's China, South Korea, and Japan. And the problem is that citizens of those countries are unwilling to travel to Asia, to Southeast Asia, not because they are not allowed in, but because of the restrictions they're about to face when they return back home. If you return back to China, quarantine. You return back to South Korea, quarantine. Back to Japan, quarantine. And people don't want to put up with this. And that's the majority of tourists for most Southeast Asian countries. That will have an impact as long as places like China enforce the zero COVID policy. Places like Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam, they are going to suffer because they're losing out on a huge chunk of profit, huge chunk of people that have been visiting the place before, whereas people coming from places like, Greece, places like Canada, they just make up a small fraction of the total amount of Chinese tourists that visited the same country. That's what you need to understand, and that's why I think governments are growing impatient. They're sick and tired of the self-imposed regulations, restrictions that have really restrained foreign investment, tourism to come back into the region. And that's why I think, you can only wait for so long, and more countries are going to pull the plug now. They're going to say enough is enough. And we have seen huge conflict, in different governments around the world, including Southeast Asia, where governments, have said, the Minister of Tourism, the Minister of Health, the President, whatever, the Prime Minister, they've been having internal fights because naturally, head of tourism, the tourism minister, they want to open up the country because, they want to make sure that they have everything open. The health minister says, well, this is not what we want to do. We want to protect our citizens. We want to reduce the risk to zero. And they can do it by keeping borders shut. They're going to do it by quarantining people. They're going to do it by enforcing very strict entry requirements, shutting down businesses. That is what is happening. But I think Governments are crazy. Governments are, like I said, sick and tired of their self-imposed regulations. Things will happen sooner than later. How much longer will it take before Southeast Asian countries will return to normal? Leave a comment below and let us know. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. I'm uploading new videos on digital nomad locations, travel updates, visas, crypto advice, and business advice several times a week right now. I highly recommend that you grab a free copy of my ebook Nomad Elite, the Insider's Guide to Retaining a Life of Freedom. All you need to do is click on the link below the video. And if you got some more time left, check out these videos. Thank you for watching.